Well, it comes the weekend, comes Michael Snyder, not in any salacious manner, and we have the movie reviews and his Culture Blast report. Hello, Michael.
Greetings from Los Angeles, Mr. Bennett. I hope all things are good for you on the right coast, because the left coast is looking sunny and sweet.
Well, it's looking rainy and dull here in New York, so.
Hey, it's just weather. Let's keep rolling. We got some new movies and a couple surprises, and I was highly anticipating Ghost in the Shell, despite all the caveats we've heard about cultural appropriation and such, which I'll kind of get to in a second. Scarlett Johansson stars in this live-action adaptation of a renowned Japanese manga that became a renowned Japanese anime film and spawned a TV series over there as well, and highly regarded. I mean, people love this thing, and it's all about a human who is basically cyber-enhanced to become a perfect soldier and sent out as a weapon by, black ops types. And the setting appears to be some kind of Neo-Tokyo. And the scientist that helps essentially transplant this woman's brain into an almost indestructible body that happens to be the shapely and attractive Scarlett Johansson is played by Juliette Binoche. There's an adversary played by Michael Pitt. Have you noticed these are all non-Japanese actors? Well, the boss of the unit that our cyber heroine is assigned to is played by the great Japanese character actor Takeshi Kitano, also known as Beat Takeshi. So he's in this thing, and he's the only one who speaks Japanese. He doesn't speak English in the entire film. Everybody else is speaking English, and he has subtitles. And there were complaints that the idea of casting a white woman as the Major, this kind of first of her kind super assassin, went against all the sensible kind of honorable things to do with a project of this nature. And we've seen so many similar settings and issues and speculative fiction about AI and androids and cybernauts and tech enhancement that this has a kind of overly familiar look, despite its look being elaborate and a beautiful kind of extrapolation of Blade Runner, like as if Blade Runner was on steroids, with cityscapes and giant holograms and advertisements, and obviously CGI has advanced to the point where this stuff can be done with great beauty and elegance. And there's also elements of The Matrix, and much of this tone seems to come from Akira, which, like Ghost in the Shell, was a manga turned anime, which and well loved. But Westworld and Humans have already happened, and they're much deeper and more complex and emotionally satisfying movies about high-tech people, despite main characters that are actual robots, albeit sentient ones. Here, this human brain in a cybernetic body displays little of the humanity and emotion that it should. I mean, Scarlett Johansson played an alien in human skin in the appropriately named Under the Skin, which was a sci-fi film from a few years ago, and that seemed like a much more layered performance than this one. Maybe it was the script, again, maybe it was overly familiar circumstances, maybe it was the kind of bad taste of putting this woman in this role when her mom, for instance, the girl's original mom is a Japanese woman who speaks in halting Japanese accented English. It just doesn't jibe for some reason. But man, it's beautiful, and it moves along at a very nice clip. So from that standpoint, I can recommend this for fans of the genre. You may be pissed at some of these little details. Rupert Sanders directed it and did it in high style, but again, maybe it's too little too late for Ghost in the Shell to really have any kind of major impact, or maybe they fumbled the ball. Okay, The Boss Baby was an even greater disappointment, but I kind of expected it to be crap. Alec Baldwin, Steve Buscemi, Lisa Kudrow, Jimmy Kimmel, and Tobey Maguire are the main people playing the voice actors in this movie. It's an animated comedy, and basically it revolves around the conceit of a suit-wearing, briefcase-carrying baby who is the second child of two people who work at Puppy Co. And unfortunately, this little baby has an older brother, the firstborn in the family, and he's obviously tormented by the boss baby. I mean, this thing requires cohesion in whatever fictional world it's trying to build. I mean, suspension of disbelief is a funny thing. If you don't have that cohesion, things sort of fall apart, even in a kind of family-oriented animated comedy. This is basically a string of gags, including a Glengarry Glen Ross one and many less sophisticated one-liners. And of course, the Glengarry Glen Ross thing is only resonant when you know that Alec Baldwin, who was voicing the baby, was one of the stars of that. There are plot holes and incongruities, and any chance the filmmakers had to do a smart, sharp look at how the firstborn kid in a family feels put upon by a new brother or sister, the tyranny of an infant, it's kind of lost amid all these flat jokes and kind of knee-jerk sentiment that's supposed to give everyone an aw shucks at the end. I mean, I've seen the same sort of thing. There's a Heavenly Baby Factory. Storks had the Heavenly Baby Factory, and the babies come down to Earth, and it's just very incongruous. Why are the parents okay with the baby wearing a little suit? It doesn't really work. Admittedly, the mom and dad are well voiced by Kudrow and Kimmel, and Buscemi's a good villain, the head of Puppy Co. The idea is, of course, babies are not as important as puppies to people, and this is a horrible, world-shattering, life-threatening difficulty that the boss baby has to deal with. It's a DreamWorks film. I was disappointed. People would be better off seeking the truly moving, excellent stop-motion movie from Switzerland and France, My Life as a Zucchini. It's already in theaters, considerably better than this thing. I love animation, so again, a major disappointment to me. A movie that's not truly great, but one that I think people should see because it tells such a great story is The Zookeeper's Wife. It's a docudrama starring Jessica Chastain, who is fantastic as Antonina Zabinski, one of a husband and wife team who are basically the people who run the Warsaw Zoo in the 30s. And in the 1930s, things were going on in Eastern Europe. And in 1939, there was a Nazi invasion of Poland, and Warsaw was bombed. The invading army came in, and the zoo was screwed, essentially. And Antonina and John Zabinski, who run the zoo, do their very best to keep the animals safe, and they begin to realize that their Jewish friends have been moved to a ghetto, and they decide to use the zoo grounds as sort of an underground railroad out of Warsaw for these people, and also a place for some Jews to hide. So the animals are under threat. Some of them have been hurt or killed in bombings, and now they have the situation where they're attempting to get their Jewish friends safe and to safety. I mean, maybe they should have called this movie Juden in the Zuden. I mean, I remember Matt Damon in that, We Bought a Zoo film. When zoo films are reflected upon, I think this is a better one than We Bought a Zoo. It's kind of like We Bombed the Zoo. But in any event, you can't complain about Chastain's performance. She's fantastic. And Johan Heldenberg, who is a European actor, is good as Jan. And the villain of the piece is Daniel Bruhl, who played an essential role as the villain in Captain America Civil War. He's a really wonderful German actor. And in this film, he plays Hitler's chief zoologist, who comes to the zoo to do a little bit of animal husbandry right before the invasion, and comes back in full uniform and becomes sort of a tormentor to these people while he's kind of hitting on Antonina. It's not a great movie, but I think it's a really good story, and Chastain acts beautifully. She's really good. The cast is good. And, it had its excitements, and, I thought it was worthwhile. Directed by Nikki Caro, written by Angela Workman. I thought solid stuff. So my favorite film of the entire selection this weekend comes kind of out of left field until you start learning about its pedigree. It's a movie called The Blackcoat's Daughter, not to be confused with The Zookeeper's Wife. It's a family theme. And sometimes a weird little horror film just gets under your skin, speaking of under your skin. And I don't mean like The Blair Witch Project, which had kind of a rough, creepy innovative charm of its own. The Blackcoat's Daughter is much more stylish and visually elegant while still being like a seriously scary-ass movie. I don't want to give too much away, but the setting is a prep school for girls. Well, I'm already involved in this thing. During midterm break. It's in the boondocks, and a couple of girls are there in the chill of winter when their parents don't show up to get them, mysteriously. The girls are played by Lucy Boynton and Sally Draper, little Sally Draper from Mad Men. No, actually, the young actress who played her, Kiernan Shipka, who's a little older, and but you'll still recognize her. And they're there on their own, other than a couple of staff members, a skeleton crew, if you will. And things get all haunted house. Meanwhile, a third girl, played by Emma Roberts, daughter of Eric Roberts, niece of Julia Roberts, and a pretty solid young actress. The third girl apparently has some mental issues, and she's on her way to the school via a ride from a couple who have some problems of their own. The couple are played by James Remar, always creepy, and Lauren Holly. And here's the surprise. Making his feature film directing debut, it's Osgood Oz Perkins, who also wrote the script, and he's the son of the late Anthony Perkins, whose signature role was, of course, Norman Bates in Hitchcock's Psycho. And The Blackcoat's Daughter shows that the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree in regards to being responsible for some truly unsettling cinema. The horror genes are strong in this one. I can't wait to see what he does next, although it might be to stab someone in the shower. I'm not really sure. Anyway, The Blackcoat's Daughter, I'm sure it'll work on home video, but I believe it's worth going to the movies to see, too, this weekend. Finally, on the art house front, Cézanne et moi, Cézanne and I, an historical drama about the tumultuous lifelong friendship between two very renowned 19th century French artists, painter Paul Cézanne and writer Émile Zola. And their relationship is examined from their early connection as schoolboys to their, more refined adulthood when they pursued their artistic paths. But by that time, Zola was famous and successful, and Cézanne, for all of his talent, continued to struggle for acclaim, and thus the tension. A certain rivalry tinged with bitterness soured the relationship, and here we see them influencing one another, tussling over women, etc., etc. And, the actors, Guillaume Gallienne as Paul Cézanne and Guillaume Canet as Émile Zola, they're fine. And it's a really interesting story, but it's kind of a little too, by the numbers to really be a great movie. But, it's the lovely Provence is the setting, and you get like all this sort of period detail, and it's kind of cool in that regard. But I've seen better, more powerful films along these lines. Written and directed by Danielle Thompson. It's okay. But again, the big winner here is The Blackcoat's Daughter. What's up with you in terms of film or TV, Mr. B?
Nothing sensational. I again say that probably one of the best TV shows on the air right now is a show called American Crime. And it is definitely a must-see. It's a show that is now in its third season. I just caught up with it in its third season. But don't worry about not knowing what went on in the other two seasons because it's an anthology. So that each year is a different story. And this one is about immigrants, and it is powerful stuff. Just powerful stuff.
Well, okay, duly noted. I think Archer is coming back soon, one of my favorite cartoon shows of all time.
Piffle.
I love it.
I think it has been one of the most disappointing cartoons ever on television.
That's you. I say watch Archer. It's a laugh.
Yeah, but you also like Expanse, which most people can't even get through.
Well, that's because they're sad and they have no attention span.
Well, that's
all right.
Yeah, because everybody except you has taste. I mean,
really?
everybody.
Acclaim. Look at the critical acclaim of The Expanse. It is widespread, but okay.
I don't see it. I don't see this widespread huzzahs about it. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, you're not looking because you don't have the attention span to watch The Expanse. But it's okay. It's okay.
Right.
Hey, remember what happened with Game of Thrones? This is boring. I don't like it.
Listen, I got through 13 boring episodes of Iron Fist. Okay, so don't say I don't get through stuff.
No, but you went back to Game of Thrones and started watching it in binge form and got it. That's what I think people may have to do for The Expanse.
But hey, I've got better things to do with my time.
Okay. Me too. Let's roll. I'm Michael Snyder. You can check me out at Twitter at Culture Blaster, or you can go to Facebook, the Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page, and check out what Bennett and I talk about and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. And there's more GABNet coming right up, and Michael will be back with us again next weekend.